Long before modern prisons and courts, punishment in ancient times was often cruel, painful, and terrifying. Rulers believed fear kept people obedient. Crimes such as theft, betrayal, or disobedience could lead to punishments harsher than death itself. Today, we explore some of the most brutal punishments in ancient history. Crucifixion was one of the most brutal and humiliating forms of execution in the ancient world, designed not just to kill but to terrify and control entire populations. It was widely used by the ancient Romans, although it likely originated earlier with groups like the Persians. The Romans perfected it as a public spectacle of punishment, especially for slaves, rebels, and the lowest classes of society. Roman citizens were almost never subjected to it because it was considered too degrading. The process itself was intentionally slow and agonizing. Victims were usually scourged, whipped severely before being forced to carry the horizontal beam of their cross to the execution site. Once there, they were either tied or nailed to the cross. Contrary to popular belief, death did not come quickly. It could take hours or even days. The real horror of crucifixion was how it killed. The victim would slowly suffocate. Hanging by the arms made it difficult to breathe, and in order to inhale, they had to push up on their feet, causing intense pain, especially if nails were driven through them. Eventually, exhaustion would make it impossible to lift their body, leading to asphyxiation. Crucifixions were often carried out in public places, roadsides, or city entrances to serve as a warning. Defy authority, and this could be your fate. It was psychological warfare as much as physical punishment. One of the most famous victims of crucifixion is Jesus Christ, whose execution under Roman rule became a defining moment in history and religion. By the time of the reign of Constantine, crucifixion was abolished in the Roman Empire, partly due to its association with Christianity and its growing moral opposition to such cruelty. In the end, crucifixion stands as a chilling reminder of how punishment in ancient times was often as much about power and fear as it was about justice.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Where are you watching from? Leave it in the comment section.
The brazen bull. The brazen bull is often described as one of the most horrifying execution devices from ancient history, though it sits somewhere between documented reality and legend. It's most famously associated with ancient Greece, specifically under the rule of Phalaris, a tyrant in the city of Acragas, modern-day Agrigento. According to historical accounts, the device was designed by a craftsman named Perillos of Athens. The brazen bull was a life-sized hollow statue made entirely of bronze. Shaped like a bull, there was a door on the side, and victims were locked inside it. Once sealed, a fire would be lit beneath the statue, slowly heating the metal until it became scorching hot. What made it especially disturbing wasn't just the method of execution. It was the psychological cruelty built into its design. Inside the bull was a system of tubes and pipes that converted the victim's screams into sounds resembling the bellowing of a bull. So from the outside, instead of hearing human cries, spectators would hear what sounded like an animal roaring. Legend has it that when Perillos presented his invention to Phalaris, the tyrant decided to test it on the inventor himself. Perillos was locked inside the bull and exposed to the heat, though he was reportedly removed before dying, only to be executed later anyway. Whether entirely true or partly exaggerated by later writers, the story of the brazen bull has endured as a symbol of extreme cruelty and abuse of power. It reflects a time when punishment could be theatrical, designed not only to kill but to instill fear and demonstrate absolute authority. Even today, the brazen bull stands as a chilling example of how far human imagination can go when it is driven by control, spectacle, and brutality. Flogging and whipping. Flogging and whipping were among the most common forms of punishment in the ancient world, and unlike devices like the brazen bull, these were used routinely, not rarely. They served multiple purposes: punishment, interrogation, humiliation, and control. In civilizations like ancient Rome and ancient Egypt, whipping was a standard legal penalty. It could be used on slaves, criminals, soldiers, and sometimes even ordinary citizens depending on the offense. The idea wasn't just to cause pain, but to make an example out of the victim. The instruments varied. Simple whips were made of leather strips, but more severe tools like the Roman flagrum had multiple lashes, embedded with bits of metal or bone. These weren't just for striking. They were designed to tear into the skin. With repeated blows, the damage could become extreme, exposing muscle and sometimes even bone. Flogging was often used as a preliminary punishment before something worse. For example, victims of crucifixion were typically scourged first to weaken them. It was also used during interrogations, where pain was inflicted to force confessions. What made flogging particularly brutal was its unpredictability. Some sentences specified a fixed number of lashes, but in many cases, especially under authoritarian rule, the punishment could continue until the person collapsed or died. Public floggings were common, carried out in marketplaces or military camps to reinforce authority and deter others. There was also a psychological layer. Being stripped and beaten in front of others added humiliation to the physical suffering. It reinforced social hierarchies, especially between masters and slaves, or rulers and the ruled. Over time, many societies began to limit or abolish such punishments, especially as ideas about human rights evolved. But for centuries, flogging and whipping were seen as normal tools of discipline, reminding people that in ancient systems of justice, pain was often the point. Exile. Exile is a punishment that removes a person from their home, community, and identity. Instead of physical pain, it causes deep emotional suffering by forcing someone to live in isolation, often in an unfamiliar place. In ancient Greece, exile, known as ostracism, allowed citizens to vote someone out of the city for up to 10 years, sometimes just for being too powerful. In ancient Rome, it was used against political enemies and writers like Ovid, who spent the rest of his life far from home. A famous case is Napoleon Bonaparte, exiled to St. Helena after his defeat, where he lived in isolation until his death. Exile was feared because it stripped people of belonging and connection, things essential to human life, making it one of the most psychologically harsh punishments in history. Stoning. Stoning is a brutal form of execution where a group throws stones at a person until they die. It was used in ancient societies and is mentioned in texts like the Hebrew Bible for certain offenses. What made it especially harsh was its public, collective nature. Many people took part, and the victim often died slowly from repeated blows. Today, it is widely condemned as a cruel and inhumane punishment. Forced labor. Forced labor is a punishment where people are made to work under harsh conditions against their will, often with little or no pay. It has been used throughout history in prisons, empires, and wartime settings. For example, in ancient Rome, prisoners and slaves were forced into exhausting labor like mining or construction. In the 20th century, systems like the Gulag in the Soviet Union subjected millions to extreme conditions, long hours, and brutal treatment. What makes forced labor especially harsh is the loss of freedom and dignity, combined with physical exhaustion and often dangerous environments. Today, it is widely condemned as a violation of human rights